welcome back to episode 4 of Between Two Rinks. I'm your host Ace. Alongside me, I have Cam. Cam, how's it going, buddy? How you been?
Hey, doing good, man. Happy to be back on the pod this week and talking a lot of great stuff about hockey. And yeah, it's going to be a great episode. Hope you guys enjoy this.
Awesome, awesome. Well, glad to be back here chatting puck with you. It's been a fun summer so far. It's been pretty good weather. It's been not too hot, not too cold. Being outside. I ended up actually going down to Plymouth, Massachusetts for work, playing a little bit of golf at a golf tournament, and I ran into who else but Todd Angeli, the Bruins anthem singer,
Legend.
at the golf tournament. So I
Did you
ended
see
up
that
getting,
ad with him too? The promotional ad?
yeah, the schedule release, which that was kind of fun for the Boston Bruins. That actually came out. He went out and recorded that after I saw him the day before. But we ended up shooting the shit. I got a selfie with him. I put him on my Twitter actually too, with me and Todd Angeli. But yeah, it's been a good summer, and hey, this has been a crazy off season in the hockey world, especially in the NHL. And we're
For
going to be
sure.
talking about Boston Bruins. We're going to be talking about PWHL. We're going to be talking a little bit of youth hockey stuff today. Yeah, Bruins have some real roster questions. Despite their busy offseason, we've had some changes in personnel on the roster. We've had some changes in personnel in the front office. In PWHL news, there's a big move happening there in regards to barns and arenas. And then there's also, unfortunately, a loss that we definitely have to pay our respects to and acknowledge in today's episode in the New England hockey community. So, without further ado, let's kind of dive in and talk a little black and gold right off the hop here, Cam. And we want to kind of talk a little bit about what's next for the Boston Bruins. You know, right off the beginning here, one of the big lingering questions that fans are going to have, and a lot of analysts and media members as well, the gap right now in this roster is going to be the top line center spot, right? Who is going to be able to drive that engine with David Pasternak and JJ Paterka? And are the Bruins going to keep Pavel Zacha? Are they going to be able to justify paying the cost that it's going to take to extend a player of Pavel Zacha's caliber? He's a 30 goal scorer. That's going to demand a really, really high AAV. Is that worth it to the Boston Bruins, or do they look at the trade market? So, what are your thoughts? Is Pavel Zacha the guy? Do they extend him here?
It's going to be a very interesting situation here with Pavel Zacha, right? A guy who was on a really team-friendly contract, but as we've seen, the market has just kind of expanded, especially for centers. He might be a guy looking to get over $8 million on the open market. So again, I think for Boston, definitely consider and negotiate, correct, right? But he's a guy, if he ends up demanding a little bit too high of an asking price, maybe you look at the trade market to see what you can get for a guy like Zacha. Obviously, a really great player, has been a really great piece and a versatile piece to this top six. But if you can get something of value and you don't want to pay him what he's asking for, maybe it is something to consider.
And I mean, you look at what some of these players of similar caliber have fetched on the trade market this offseason, right? Like, I feel like Pavel Zacha could easily fetch you a first, a second, maybe a middling prospect at this point, too. Like, there's definitely some upside there if you do not see a path forward for this player to continue with your franchise. But I will say the case for keeping Pavel Zacha is, he's got undeniable chemistry with David Pasternak. And who knows what he's going to be able to do with a player like JJ Paterka. He hasn't had a chance to play with him yet. And he's not old yet. He's not at that point where it's like there's only 4 seasons left in this guy that's really worth the squeeze. He does have a lot of upside still. And honestly, the other thing to keep in mind is that Don Sweeney's playing with house money, right? I mean, he got Pavel Zacha for Eric Holla, 1-for-1. Eric Holla, I think, is like on his third team since that acquisition happened. So I don't know, man. I think it's going to be fascinating to kind of keep an eye on here. But I guess the ultimate question is Pavel Zacha a top line center?
In my opinion, I think Fraser Minton is going to end up being that guy for Boston. I think his two-way game is going to complement the top line very well. And it'll be interesting to see what happens if Paterka is going to play on the top line with Pasternak or if he's going to go try to drive his own line on that second line per se. So again, I think Zach is very capable of playing with Pasternak. And I think it might be, I think Sturm's going to try a bunch of different things, whether it be Minton or Higgins or Zaka or even somebody else that maybe we haven't referenced. But you'd have to imagine one of those three are going to get a long, heavy look at playing with David Pasternak. And for Pasternak's sake, I'm sure he wants a little bit of consistency on that top line.
So you mentioned three names: Higgins, Minton, Zaka. There's one name in particular that you didn't mention in there, and it's probably kind of concerning if you're a Boston Bruins fan, considering it's a center making the most money. Elias Lindholm, will he rebound? I heard something kind of concerning out of Don Sweeney this offseason where he was saying, maybe this is just the Elias Lindholm we get now, talking about his ongoing back problems that he's been having. Is an Elias Lindholm rebound possible? Like, what are your thoughts on Lindholm?
Oh man, I mean it's definitely possible, but I think he is a long-term IR candidate in the next couple of years for Boston. I do believe his back injury is more sufficient than maybe we initially believed, and he's definitely taken a couple steps back from the player that he once was. Again, I still think there's value for him on the team, like as a third line center, but obviously not making that almost $8 million a year. I still think he can be an effective player, but he's definitely not a top line center, and there's no way he's rebounding. No chance. Possible? Sure. I just don't see it.
So he says possible, but not possible. All right. I have to agree at this point, when the general manager publicly says we may just have to, this just may be what we have, that's concerning to me as a Boston Bruins fan, which is really upsetting because I was stoked to see Elias Lindholm when we signed him because the upside was there. I mean, I really honestly thought playing on a line with David Pasternak, Elias Lindholm had a chance to score 30 goals. And obviously it's just, father time waits for no one, right? Maybe he's aging a little younger than others. I mean, shit, man, I'm 35 and I look like I'm 50 at this point. Like I'm not going to talk shit. Like it happens to all of us, right?
No,
So,
for sure. And Lindholm started playing in the NHL when he was, what, 18 or 19? So he's had a pretty long and illustrious career so far, per se. So,
yeah.
again, obviously, we hope he bounces back and we wish him well. But, again, looking at this realistically, probably a long-term IR candidate in the next couple of years for Boston.
So that begs the question. You already mentioned James Higgins. Do you think that James Higgins should start at wing in the 26-27 season? Or should the Boston Bruins plan to put him at center right off the hop so we can develop him as a center?
James Higgins needs to develop as a center. And I think, in my opinion, I would love to see a second line with Hagen's speed paired up with JJ Paterka and the shooting threat of a Morgan Geeky. That's what I would like to see. Now, I'm sure Higgins has the versatility to play the wing, especially on the power play, kind of running the half wall. But I think we want to develop him as that top line center per se. So let's give him a chance to play with another speedy winger, a very talented winger in JJ Paterka, and giving him a scoring threat, a 30-goal scorer in Morgan Geeky. That's what I would do if I was Marco Sturm, and put Fraser Minton and Hustadinov or Zaka or whoever on the wing for that top line alongside David Pasternak.
Yeah, I mean, my only thought is I don't want to put too much of a defensive responsibility on a young developing player. I mean, you see what Porter Martone's doing, and obviously Martone has the size difference compared to, James Higgins. And Higgins is a natural center, but when you get to the NHL, the game is faster, the players are bigger, the stakes are higher, right? So maybe it does make sense, kind of like when Tyler Sagan broke into the league where he's playing with Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand. Maybe it does make sense to play James Higgins on the opposite wing of a David Pasternak, for example. Can you imagine the puck movement between James Higgins and David Pasternak? You put basically anybody at center and they'll just be able to bank the puck off their ass for goals, right? Like,
Right. I mean, that could be a very intriguing line as well. You got a guy like Higgins, maybe with Zaka centering them and Pasternak on the wing. That could be a very fun line as well. So I think Sturm's going to have a lot of options, and it'll be very curious to see what is rolled out initially. And I'm sure we'll see a ton of different looks in camp and preseason, and who meshes with who and who will look best on each line. And I guess, I mean, it's a fair assumption to say, maybe you don't want to put that defensive responsibility on Higgins. He's only 19 years old, but again, I think he should be playing top six no matter what. I'd love to see him at center, but again, I like his versatility. He can play on the left wing too if the club needs him to.
You got to have him on the power play too. You can't just have a kid
top line power play.
Preferably, right? I mean, I wanted him on the PP2 last season when he was in the lineup, but
he looked good on the power play with his small sample size.
Yeah. So let's pivot here. We talked a lot about the forwards for the black and gold so far. Let's talk about the blue line, which this is ridiculous. It looks like almost like driving on 93 in rush hour in Boston right now. Like there is just way too many names here. The blue line is an absolute glut right now in Boston. But the one thing that Don Sweeney pointed out when he had his press conference post free agency is we have to take into account the suspension for Charlie McAvoy to start the season. Obviously, Charlie's going to be missing 6 games for his response in the postseason. I still don't agree with that suspension, but that's a story for another time. Who are your 6 defensemen with McAvoy sitting out for game 1 through 6? Cam?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because there's a lot of potential different options. But I think your top pair per se, and I think it's going to be pretty well balanced across the board between 3 pairs. But I think it's going to be Nikita Zadorov and Connor Clifton as your top pair. But really, it's going to be based on matchups and situations. Hampus Lindholm's going to play with Will Borgen on the second pair, and then your third pair, Freddie Brunet needs to be in the lineup for Boston.
I agree.
We need him in the lineup for sure, and I think Yoki Haru is going to play, or at least have the trust to play on that bottom pair with a guy like Brunet to at least start the season, and then we'll see what happens after that. So that leaves right now Aspero, Lohrei, Harris, all healthy scratched.
It's just a lot of NHL talent that is just sitting unused. So what about when McAvoy returns? Who sits out then?
I think pretty clearly it's Henri Jokiharju, but I feel like he's kind of fallen out of favor for the guy like Marco Sturm. He didn't play a lot down the stretch. I wouldn't be surprised to see him traded if he doesn't have a good camp. But again, I think McAvoy will come in. He'll either play with an Aspero or a Zadorov. Maybe Aspero does play heavy minutes till McAvoy comes back. There's a lot of different question marks, but I think Jokiharju for sure will draw out, and then maybe a guy like Brunet will rotate in depending on the game and the physicality type matchup. And I think that's probably what they're going to do. I think Brunet will be their 6 or 7 defenseman with Connor Clifton, and Nikita Zadorov will play with Charlie McAvoy on the top pair.
So we talked about Jokiharju a few times now. Is he the guy that is the logical odd man out? I mean, I do believe that his stock is probably highest right now than what it has been the last few seasons, especially with his performance in the Worlds tournament. He ended up getting recognition for one of the top defenders in the tournament, which really, frankly, shocked me. But,
yep.
I mean, hey, when you get that kind of accolade, somebody's going to pick it up. I mean, I feel like a incompetent NHL GM somewhere will be like, "Oh, we got a trophy. This guy's good," and then maybe would be keen on acquiring Jokiharju. What are your thoughts on that? Is he a guy that could see himself on the way out once McAvoy returns?
Definitely, he's I think for him, he's a right shot defenseman. So general managers obviously overvalue the right hand defenseman. They're going to go for kind of a premium on the market. And he's on a pretty, overall, if you think he's going to go play top 4 for some middling, below average team, he's on a pretty good contract for who he is. I think the team, maybe they lose somebody early in the season. They need to go trade for a right shot defenseman. Jokiharju might be a guy, and other teams like, yeah, we'll go target this guy.
I mean, what does Jokiharju even get you? Like a 3rd or 4th round pick? I think that's perfectly fair.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't think it's going to be anything over a third round pick. And again, we traded what, a fourth round pick to get him. So if we can get a third or fourth round pick back, it's really, no loss or no gain. So I think it's a fine move if he's not going to fit in on the blue line.
So let's pivot a little bit here. We talked about forwards, we talked about defense. Let's talk about the goaltending position. Obviously, with Jonas Korpisalo's departure, which bravo Don Sweeney on that move. That is just chef's kiss. The Bruins finally publicly and internally put the money where the mouth is, right? They've always talked about players earning their opportunity and making sure when they do that they're facilitated that opportunity, which we can talk about maybe some of the signings over in Colorado being a different story this week. But let's go ahead and we just clapped. We clapped for them. Mikey DiPietro is receiving the opportunity to be the backup goaltender at the NHL level behind Jeremy Swayman. And honestly, what else can you say? He was the AHL MVP. He was literally the leader for the Providence Bruins until they fell apart in the postseason like they always do. But that's a story for another time. Can Michael DiPietro be a reliable NHL backup, Cam?
Oh, I'm so confident in this. Yes, 100%. And he's not going to get an opportunity. You can't get an opportunity until you're given a long look as an opportunity, especially as a goaltender. I am fully confident Mikey DiPietro will be Boston's backup goaltender for the entirety of the season. And I don't know if there's a backup plan, no pun intended. I know they signed Patera and they got Zajac down there as well, but he's their guy. They're going to give him a chance, and I think he's going to have a pretty long leash, and he's going to have a really good mentor in Jeremy Swayman, who's established himself as one of the premier goaltenders in the NHL. So I'm fully confident this man, Mikey DiPietro, is Boston's backup goaltender next season. Let's go.
See, what I love the most about this is that he's not a prototypical NHL goaltender. DiPietro's a little smaller than what you see at the NHL level for goaltending, but the athleticism that this guy has, the
Elite.
way that he's able to move around the crease, he's very cat-like, and I'm not just saying that because that's just the synonym for a lot of goaltending. I was frankly a few years back when we first acquired him in trade from the Vancouver Canucks. He was just super impressive. Um, his reaction time is
Yeah,
incredibly quick. I'm just so stoked to see what he can do in the black and gold this season. I'm sure I'll be seeing him a lot when I'm there at the Garden watching the games this year.
for
Um,
sure. And his NHL stats, if you look at the stats, they're not very good. But you got to look at what team he played on, right? It's the Vancouver Canucks. And it's like a 2 game or 3 game sample size, so don't put any weight into a crappy, shitty sample size on a bad Vancouver team.
well, I mean, just look at Brandon Bussy's performance in the NHL preseason with the Boston Bruins. It wasn't promising. You look at Dan Vladar's performance with the Boston Bruins, it wasn't very good, right? There's obviously upside there, but you look at a small sample size, you can't extrapolate career production or career success based upon a sample size that small. So 100% agree. It's going to be really interesting to see if the Bruins can bounce back defensively. That was a big problem for them last year. They gave up one of
It
the most
was.
high danger chances in the league.
Yeah, Swayman bailed
Um,
them out.
yeah. So my follow up question before we wrap up here with the black and gold roster for this year is the fact that Mikey DiPietro's experience is maybe a little less than obviously Jonas Korpisalo, who's a former number one. Is that a concern for you? Do we risk overworking Jeremy Swayman by making him play even more games than what he did last year, or is Swayman ready to go with that bona fide, legitimate number one where he's the guy and mentoring a younger player that's trying to establish their career?
I'm worried about that. I'm not going to lie to you. I think if you're trying to play Jeremy Swayman over 65 games a year, by the time playoffs roll around, he might be slightly burnt out. That's something the organization definitely has to consider. And that's kind of the one pro to the Linus Olmark Jeremy Swayman tandem. They always had a fresh goaltender who's elite, ready to go. Maybe you don't get that luxury. Maybe DiPietro is great and you do get that luxury. But again, that has to be a concern. The experience behind Swayman. If Swayman goes down, can you trust Mikey DiPietro to hold down the fort? That there's a lot of question marks. But again, I think the organization feels that DiPietro has earned his shot and his opportunity, and I can see that. But again, definitely in the back of my mind, definitely very over concerned of Jeremy Swayman being overworked by Boston earlier in the season.
So I think that's probably a good way to kind of cap the roster for this season so far. Obviously, what we're seeing now isn't necessarily a final product, right? There could be other signings, that could be trades, that could be XYZ for the Boston Bruins. But as constructed right now, I think that's probably a good synopsis. But hey, that's not the only changes that the Boston Bruins have made. There has been quite the shuffle. I can't recall a time where the Boston Bruins have made such a tumultuous change in the front office since Peter Chiarelli was fired and Don Sweeney was hired as a general manager. So two assistant GMs are out. Jamie Langenbrunner, we've already talked about that briefly. He heads off to Nashville. Evan Gold has been basically fired but not extended. He's been permitted to seek external NHL opportunities, which is a fancy way of saying we're not keeping you here.
You're done.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, Evan. And they end up bringing in Kevin Adams, former GM of the
Yes.
Buffalo
Let's
Sabres,
go.
who built the roster that's so damn good right now. He is
So
joining as
awesome.
a senior advisor to Don Sweeney in the Boston
Yeah.
Bruins front office. What's your immediate reaction to Kevin Adams? I already hear it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Adams was extremely overhated in Buffalo because the team didn't put the results on paper. But if you look at that roster, he constructed that thing from drafting Zach Benson to trading for Tage Thompson to establishing that blue line with Rasmus Dahlin. He built that core and that foundation. Sucks he didn't get to see his product get kind of finished out, but he's a fantastic drafter and developer, and I think that's kind of what Don Sweeney needs, because obviously Don Sweeney's weakness is drafting, at least to the general fan base of Boston, and earlier in drafts. So I think Adams will do a good job providing input, working with the scouts, and I like the hiring of the other AGMs as well, just to have some more collaboration in the front office.
And there's already been some combination of connections on social media. I mean, Adams was the guy that brought Paterka into the league, right? He ended up finding him via the draft in Buffalo. And now he's brought that connection, and we have the German connection with Marco Sturm with Paterka. So it's going to be fascinating to see how many other former Buffalo players potentially end up on the radar from the Boston Bruins that maybe wouldn't have otherwise. The other thing that's kind of interesting is we've talked about this a little bit, but Connor Clifton ends up signing with the Boston Bruins, and Kevin Adams was a GM that ended up signing Clifton out of Boston to bring him to Buffalo. So it all kind of comes full circle in multiple ways for Connor Clifton. But yeah, I'm really fascinated to kind of see what happens here. Uh, the big kind of void that I think the Boston Bruins are going to have to endure is the departure of Evan Gold. And it has been no secret across the league, across Bruins fandom, across the Bruins media, that Evan Gold has been that capologist that has figured out ways to maximize, retention on deals, ways to kind of mitigate the cap hits as much as possible. The Bruins have always been very, very creative on acquiring players with retention and stuff like that. And, Evan Gold has been a catalyst for that. Are you concerned with the Bruins' ability to kind of backfill that position and address some of those areas? Or do you think that the people that they have in the front office are more than capable to pick up that weight with Gold's departure?
Obviously, Gold's departure does suck because he was extremely valuable in that aspect. But I do believe the additions of the new AGMs are going to be, I think they're going to be great. I think it's good to get some fresh mindset into the organization. And these guys have done they're brought in for a reason. I like the versatility from analytics to cap management to Kevin Adams with his experience joining Don Sweeney and Cam Neely. I think it's going to be a good thing, and I think it'll be good to get some more perspective as not the team's not turning a corner per se, but you have this core three of Swayman, McAvoy, and Pasternak, and you're going to continue to add to that. So maybe it's the start of a new era with the young kids coming in, Higgins, Minton, Kustadinov, and can these managers in the organization help Boston get to the next level and work some cat magic when these guys inevitably do have to be paid. Minton next summer, Hustinov next summer, Higgins 2 years. So again, I think it's going to be a very beneficial thing, and I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to kind of watch there. One other thing that kind of is interesting is I'm curious about where Evan Gold actually lands, right? So he's been rumored to be applying, and honestly, it was public that he was applying and interviewing for head GM jobs. Ultimately, ended up not working out. I saw him tied to Vancouver. I saw him tied to Toronto. Where does Evan Gold end up, and is that something that we can expect is probably coming out in the news relatively soon?
I think by mid-August, we will see Evan Gould hired in some sort of capacity around the league. I think he's an up and coming guy, and I could totally see him joining Vancouver's front office and joining the Sedins and Johnson in some sort of cap management flexibility role there. I know Toronto's done a lot of shuffling there with John Chayka this offseason as well. So, again, I'm excited for him to get an opportunity to go expand himself in the league. I think he's done a great job at Boston, but I think he's going to end up in Vancouver.
Interesting. Yeah, I did hear reports immediately after it was announced that Evan Gold wasn't returning, that he was ending up in Toronto, but those haven't been unsubstantiated thus far. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that and see where he ends up heading off to. Another quick note: Bruins prospect Mason Langenbrunner, son of Jamie Langenbrunner, who departed, ended up deciding to hang up the skates. Harvard product over there. Ultimately decided, hey, my best route to making money is get involved in the private sector, and ends up connecting with some startups and pursuing those opportunities. And we'd like to wish him the best of luck. And yeah, another Bruins prospect that ends up not panning out for the black and gold. And we were calling him a nepo baby a couple episodes ago anyway, so no big loss there as far as I'm concerned for the Boston Bruins. But any thoughts on Mason Langenbrunner?
Obviously, to go even make it pro and play college hockey, it's such a blessing. So congratulations to him to being drafted and playing college hockey, and I wish him the best. I think obviously players are going to do different career paths, what they think is best, and shout out for him to even getting drafted and playing hockey, man. Love it. Good for him.
For sure. So let's talk a little bit of women's hockey here. Some kind of interesting news coming out this offseason. I myself, if you're not familiar, I live in southern New Hampshire now. I live in a town called Hudson, right next to Nashua. I'm about 15 to 20 minutes away from Lowell. So I moved here in February, and I was stoked to really enjoy some Boston Fleet hockey in the 26-27 season. Not going to be so easy for me because they just announced that they're moving from Lowell at the Songa Center down to Agganis Arena. So good news for Boston fans in general of the Fleet, because now they are actually in the city itself. That was a big gripe from PWHL fans, is that, okay, great, you're a
Right.
Boston team, but you're 40 minutes outside of the city. Like, that's not really convenient. Like, sure, we could take the T up there, but still, that's not easy to deal with. So they're truly in the city now. Curious of your thoughts about the move to Agganis, Cam, for the Boston Fleet.
I like it. Sucks for you, but I do like the move. I think the fans want to be closer to the city, and that's where all the action's happening, right? You got the Bruins, you got the Celtics, Red Sox. Obviously, the Patriots are the exception, right? But it'll be awesome to have women's hockey actually in Boston, or at least closer to the vicinity, right? So, again, Lowell, you know, would have been made it maybe a little bit easier for you to catch some games, but I think it's a good thing for the organization as a whole. So excited to maybe even catch a game this year. I'd love to make it down. I've never seen a Fleet game yet, so that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty rough. I mean, it was always a pretty thin crowd there at the Songus Center, but you know, the people that did go there, they cared very much about their fleet, and we are cognizant of that, and that kind of sucks for them, but it's best for the development of the
Yeah,
sport
yes, for
for
sure.
Boston, for the franchise. They should end up selling more tickets. They did have four previous games in sorry, they had 6 prior regular season games at Agganis, and 4 of the 6 actually sold out. So there are good signs there for the Boston Fleet. One thing that I kind of am interested in getting your thoughts on, it's kind of fleet adjacent, but rumor is that the Boston Celtics ownership team are looking at building a arena for themselves in the south side of the city, down in Southie and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
if the Celtics depart and they leave TD Garden, does that not just open the door to have 100% hockey arena in North Station? Like, would that not be a
That'd be
good thing for
sick.
hockey fans?
No, that would be so good. I think that's best case scenario for, well, everything hockey related, right? Because you can imagine just taking, the Amtrak in for a game, going to catch the Fleet, or if you're in the area, catching the Bees, and probably would make it easier for the crew trying to switch the floors and the ice. I shout out Bull Gang, but uh, again, that will be interesting to see because I know there's a lot of convenience going into North Station and playing at the Garden. But if that does happen, that'd be such a good thing for hockey. That would be awesome.
I would love it immensely, right? If we could just have the Fleet and the Bruins at the same arena, you don't have to worry about maintaining the parquet. We can get all the Celtics crap out of the top of the garden, just have it just be
Yeah,
black and
more
gold.
black and gold
Bring
all year
back the
round.
gold seats.
Oh,
Like
vintage.
when I walk down to the bottom of the garden, I see all the Celtics stuff. I'm like, all right, I get it. They're a historic franchise. I'm not a basketball guy. You guys can tell that already. I respect the Celtics. They've been very, very good for very, very long. They're one of the best, if not the best, NBA franchise. I just don't care for basketball. So put yourself in your own barn, make yourself your own mecca of basketball. Obviously, Massachusetts has a strong basketball history, basketball Hall of Fames in Massachusetts, everything like that. But, get them out of the garden as far as I'm concerned and bring the Fleet in. Let's make this a hockey barn.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Um, If you guys didn't know, by the way, we do have our website live, www.betweentworinkspodcast.com. We have our merch store live as well. So if you're interested in supporting the show, grab a t-shirt, grab a hoodie. We have pucks for sale. We have a glass if you like putting the adult beverages back. There's a ton of cool stuff that we do have available. So take a look at that. It's all reasonably priced, and we would really appreciate your support. Um, on a somber note, the hockey world lost an inspirational guy this week. Um, Chris Davidson, the director of the Seacoast Spartans, he passed away on Monday at 50 years old after a cancer diagnosis. Um, he was the academy director at the Seacoast Performance Academy as well, which is, really churned out some good players in the Seacoast area of New Hampshire. Some of which have even coached my daughter already. Um, and seeing the impact that he had on coaches, friends, players, it has just been very eye opening for me. I didn't have the opportunity to interact with him personally, but the person that I coached with last year, Chris Davidson, was one of the first ever coaches her son had, and she posted a video of him working with her son when he was just like a toddler on the ice, and I almost started crying. Um, Captain of St. Michael's 1999 national championship team. Um, just a real, real big loss in the New England hockey community. And on behalf of Between Two Rinks, we want to give our heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, teammates, players, students, everything. It's a big, big loss. Cam, anything to add?
Such a sad loss for the hockey community in New England, and obviously just a really well respected individual. And you hate to hear that news. And again, such a great hockey influence for a lot of young people, and I think his legacy is going to live on. Again, thinking about his family and everybody who's been involved in any of for Seacoast and anybody who's been involved with Chris Davidson. Uh, Thinking about everybody, and it's just, again, it's just so terrible, man. Like, so sad.
Yeah, once again, condolences to the Davidson family and obviously the Seco Spartans family as well too. We're putting our sticks out for you guys, and we're we're with you, and yeah, we're very sad as well. Um, let's talk a little bit about the development of women's hockey in the region right now, and I think that's kind of interesting too because we saw Caroline Harvey, aka KK Harvey, go first overall in the PWHL draft. She ends up heading over to Vancouver. She didn't play her college hockey in New England, which I find kind of interesting. She ended up going over and playing with Wisconsin, who is one of the big dogs in women's hockey in the NCAA level. 2026 Patty Kazmaier winner. Uh, I'm very, very intrigued with this pick. She was also an Olympic gold medalist and tournament MVP with Team USA. She's gonna be an immediate plug and play player for the Vancouver Golden Knights, who need all the help that they can get. But what I'm more interested in is the fact that she's from Salem, New Hampshire, right next door from where I'm at in Nashua, Hudson area. Is this a dawn of a new era for the women's hockey in New England? Is this something we can kind of expect to continue to see, Cam?
Yeah, and this story should be a lot bigger because I think she has the potential to be, if not the best, one of the best women's hockey players from New England. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say here. And this story needs a lot more attention. I think she's going to go to Vancouver and she's ready to go. She's not a developmental piece. She's going to help that franchise right now. And again, really cool to see somebody from New England go out, get drafted first overall. That's no slouch. And going to a place like Vancouver, had a great, just a great talented hockey player. And I think that's going to help Vancouver out a lot in their development of that franchise. And that's something they desperately needed. So, super excited to follow along for her career. Wishing her all the best. And yeah, that's a slam dunk pick.
Yeah, and it's not just KK Harvey, right? I mean, we're also talking about you go back to the previous draft. You got Casey O'Brien from Milton, Massachusetts. She was drafted third overall by the Sirens in the 2025 PWHL draft. She also had three NCAA championships and a Patty Kazmaier Award at Wisconsin. Just
Absurd.
Wisconsin is just a buzzsaw right now.
I know.
She ended up leading the NCAA with 88 points in her final college season. She ended up passing and hold on. This name here that she ended up passing is not insignificant. She ends up passing the Fleet legend Hillary Knight, Team USA legend, in leading scoring for Wisconsin. Just really, really
That's
impressive stuff.
absurd.
So I mean, between Casey O'Brien and KK Harvey, you've got a dynamic, stalwart defenseman. You've got a dominant forward. Like Boston and the New England region are suddenly cooking up with gas when it comes to women's hockey.
Yeah, and it almost feels like a change of the guards, right? Obviously, Hillary Knight, one of, I think, my favorite women's hockey player of all time, personally. And you see these young infusion of talent coming in from the New England area, which is super awesome. Like Milton, Mass, like seriously, that's amazing. And then shout out Wisconsin. I think they're already a great hockey school on the men's side, but I think women's hockey has to be considered one of their best sports in their program. I mean, they're just absolutely developing these women into incredible hockey players, and I'm very excited to see who else out of New England is going to get developed and go out to Wisconsin, because obviously there's a really great pipeline there. But yeah, that's absurd. I mean, it's so exciting to see the change of the guards too, and because there's all these great players like Hillary Knight, and now you have Harvey coming in and O'Brien coming in. So it's super awesome and super good for the sport in general, but also super good for New England hockey as well.
Agreed, 100%. All right, so let's go ahead and button this thing up here. We've talked about Bruins, we've talked about Fleet, given our condolences to Chris Davidson and his family. We're going to go and do the final horn here, and we're going to start this off with a buy or sell segment. And there's going to be 5 topics here that I'm going to send over to you, and then I'll give you my thought afterwards. Right off the hop, buy or sell? Do the Boston Bruins trade a defenseman before opening night?
No, I think they're going to run into the season with Jordan Harris in the AHL, and Lohrei and Yoki Hardy will both be on the team.
I'm going to buy this one. It wouldn't surprise me if the right team comes calling, if the Boston Bruins end up trading away like a Yoki Haru. If you can pick up a 4th now, I would do that, jettison that guy. I mean, I would like to have Clifton and Borgen in this lineup over Yoki Haru regardless. So I'm going to take a buy on that one there. Buy or sell? James Hagan starts the season at wing.
Sell that. Higgins is the center. He's going to be Boston's second line center.
I'm going to buy that one. I'm going to say yes. He is going to start at the wing, even if it's just to ease him into the NHL level. He didn't get enough NHL experience last season, so this was obviously the path of least resistance for him. So love that we're disagreeing on these first 2. That's always fun. Buy or sell? Mikey DiPietro gets 20-plus starts.
Buy. I think he gets 25 starts.
I'm going to buy as well here. I mean, he's the AHL reigning MVP, was the MVP for the Providence Bruins. You do not jettison Jonas Korpisalo unless you think you got something that can actually handle a decent workload. You do not want to overwhelm Jeremy Swayman. So I am in agreement there. So our first agreement here with DiPietro getting 20-plus starts. Buy or sell? The Fleet sell out at least half of their Agganis Arena schedule.
Huge buy. I think they're going to sell out. I think they're going to sell out over 60%.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and buy as well. Vibes are high. I will say that there's a little bit of skepticism when it comes to how the Fleet are going to put the puck in the net. That was a problem last year, and there was a big departure of talent with the forward core we've already talked about. So that's something that's going to be kind of interesting to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think that the hype will be there now that they're in the city, easier to get to. There's more people as well. So yeah, buy on the Fleet selling out at least half of their Agganis schedule. And then finally, kind of an interesting one to bring it all together. Black and gold and the green and black.
Okay.
Buy or sell? The Fleet will win the Walter Cup before the Boston Bruins win another playoff round.
I'm only saying sell because I don't think they can put the puck in the net enough. So I'm going to sell that. I think Boston's going to win a playoff round next season.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go ahead and sell that as well. As much as I would love to see the Fleet win a Walter Cup, and obviously the path of the Walter Cup is a lot easier than the path of the Stanley Cup, not to diminish the accomplishment whatsoever, but the Stanley Cup is the most difficult championship to win in professional sports. There's only 12 teams in the PWHL now, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So a lot less teams than the National Hockey League.
Yeah. So it's a much easier path, and I acknowledge that, but there's a long way to go for Danielle Marmer, GM of the Fleet, and that roster to kind of get them to a point where they can be a true Walter Cup contender again, as far as I'm concerned. But this has been a fun episode, Cam. Any closing thoughts today as we go into another week of the doldrum that is the off season for the NHL and PWHL and hockey in general.
Couple things. Fleet, if they can buy some offensive talent, I definitely think they got a shot to go win the Walter Cup. Boston, figure it out on defense. I know you probably just want bodies heading into that McAvoy suspension, but please get rid of Henry Yoki Henry or Yoki Haru or
Please.
Mason Lohrei. And then I'm excited, man. I know we're in the dog days of the off season, but again, NHL season is 70 days away. Jesper Boquist, uh, days away from this recording of this episode. So we'll be seeing hockey sooner than you guys know. So I'm excited.
So I will say my closing thought is I think this is a fun year specifically because I can't tell you the last time where opening night in the NHL was with the Bruins involved. And now it's an 84 game season.
In September too.
We don't have to wait till October to get the NHL regular
Let's
season
go.
started. We're getting going in late September. So September 29th, the Bruins are hosting the New York Rangers as part of the first night in the NHL regular season. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have our
Are you
friend.
going?
Oh, I'll be there.
Oh yeah.
I'll be there. Yeah. Old friend Jonas Corposalo is coming back to TD Garden to face the Bruins on opening night.
Get him the start.
Yeah, start Corpy. Let him start, Rangers. You heard
Do
from
it.
us right now. So that's something that I think is kind of interesting to kind of comment before we wrap. But thank you, everyone, for your listenership. We really appreciate it. We're trying to build something fun and something consistent here with Between Two Rinks. As always, if you have any questions for us, there's a forum on our website. You can engage with us on our socials. Cam and I are very interactive. Follow Bruins Media on Instagram. You're going to be able to hang out with Cam there. He goes live, has a lot of really awesome Bruins content going out there. And yeah, we also have a Discord for Bruins Chat too. So if you're interested in doing that, drop me a note on Twitter and I can get you an invite for our Bruins Chat Discord server. But yeah, until next time, like I said, we really appreciate your listenership and we'll catch you then. Peace.